Okay, so we are all set. Today we have Jody here. She is teaching the class about keeping you and your flock healthy using the principles of NPIP. So go ahead, Jody. We will be recording this class and sending it out to all of our customers who have registered for the class. So you can go ahead and get started whenever you're ready.
Well, thank you very much. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining me today for my presentation or later on in YouTube about how to keep you and your flock safe and using the principles of the National Poultry Improvement Plan, also known as NPIP. My name is Jody Jones, and I am a veterinary medical officer for USDA APHIS Veterinary Services stationed here in Anchorage, Alaska. But I do cover the whole state of Alaska for USDA. The presentation today will be divided into 3 sections and will cover what the National Poultry Improvement Plan is and why it was implemented, as well as the principles that underlie the program. We will then discuss one of these principles, biosecurity, in more detail and how this principle can be utilized by backyard poultry producers, such as yourself, to make sure that both your birds, your neighbors' birds, and you can stay safe and healthy. At the end of the presentation, I will provide some resources that are out there that may be helpful references for you in the future. All right, so what is the National Poultry Improvement Plan, which I will also refer to as NPIP? The National Poultry Improvement Plan is a voluntary partnership between the poultry industry and state and federal governments. Poultry producers have worked with USDA's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, known as APHIS, various state governments, and the state poultry associations and federations to create a system that has significantly reduced poultry disease, improved poultry and human health, and created a continuing surveillance system for potential poultry health problems. When I refer to a surveillance system, what this means is that flocks are tested at scheduled times for disease that are monitored by the NPIP program, even if the flock appears healthy. The reason for this is testing is to monitor for any diseases that might have been introduced into the flock while the disease is subclinical, meaning none of the birds look sick, and to ensure that preventative health measures such as vaccination and biosecurity have been effective in keeping diseases out of the flock. In addition to surveillance, NPIP requires that strict biosecurity, which we'll discuss more later, be adhered to, and that management practices such as vaccine programs and records are in place and up to date. Through the NPIP, poultry producers earn certain classifications for their products based on meeting these specific management and disease testing requirements. This voluntary partnership has become the recognized standard through which U.S. poultry producers demonstrate the disease status of their birds, day-old chicks, and hatching eggs for shipment and sale. So why was the NPIP started? The NPIP program started in 1935 with a 3-pronged focus on certifying breed stock, bird performance, and the elimination of bacillary white diarrhea caused by Salmonella pulmorum, which is also known as pulmorum disease. Pulmorum disease was a disease in poultry that could cause up to 80% death rate in chicks. Since then, the program has evolved to include commercial poultry, turkeys, waterfowl, exhibition poultry, backyard poultry, and game birds. One thing I would like to mention is what we mean when we are discussing poultry. Poultry is defined in the NPIP as domestic fowl, including chickens, turkeys, ostriches, emus, rheas, cassowaries, waterfowl, and game birds, except doves and pigeons, that are bred primarily to produce eggs and meat. In addition to pulmorum disease, the diseases monitored under the NPIP program are avian influenza, also known as fowl plague, Salmonella gallerium, known as fowl typhoid, Salmonella enteritis, Mycoplasma galliceptum, which is also known as chronic respiratory disease and infectious sinusitis in turkeys, Mycoplasma synoviae, which is known as infectious synovitis, and Mycoplasma melagridis, which is also known as day-old chicks aerosaculitis. In addition, the NPI program has programs such as U.S. Salmonella Monitored and U.S. Sanitation Monitored. These are intended to reduce the incidence of salmonella organisms in hatching eggs, chicks, and poults through effective and practical sanitation procedures at the breeder, farm, and in the hatchery. Through the NPIP, both pullorum disease and a similar disease, fowl typhoid, have been eliminated from the U.S. commercial poultry industry and are rarely seen in the U.S. All of these diseases have very serious economic and animal health impacts. The photo in the slide is of a chicken who is infected with the Mycoplasma synoviae, infectious synoviitis. So you can see that the chicken's foot is very swollen, and when you actually open up that joint, it is full of fluid. And then there is one that is infected with avian influenza. And if you look closely, you can see that there's a lot of swelling around that chicken's eye and around the comb and the wattle. There are 3 types of participants involved in the NPIP program: independent flocks, hatcheries, and dealers. The poultry products certified by the NPIP are hatching eggs, baby chicks, poults, and started pullets. The U.S. prohibits the entry of any poultry shipments except for those designated as pullorum typhoid clean. Essentially, this means that poultry moving interstate should participate in the U.S. pullorum typhoid clean program of the NPIP or be tested negative for pullorum and typhoid before leaving their home state. As I mentioned in the previous slide, both pullorum disease and fowl typhoid have been essentially eradicated from the U.S., and we would like to make sure that these devastating poultry diseases do not come back. Individual producers voluntarily participate in the NPIP by enrolling with their official state agency. In Alaska, this would be through the state veterinarian, Dr. Bob Gerlach. To participate, a poultry producer must first request enrollment, then demonstrate that their facilities and procedures meet the standard required, maintain appropriate records, and complete the required diagnostic testing and monitoring of their birds, eggs, and facilities. Alaska is unique in that there is not much shipping across state lines here, and there are not any large poultry producers. However, when you buy chicks from the lower 48 states, make sure they come from an NPIP enrolled program. This will ensure that your chicks have a healthy start and will prevent introduction of disease into any birds that you may already have. Every spring, USDA publishes a directory of participants handling egg type and meat type chickens and turkeys, and a directory of participants handling waterfowl, exhibition poultry, game birds, and rat types. These directories list hatcheries, independent flocks, and dealers participating in the NPIP, and the products that they handle, and the disease programs that they participate in. This directory is publicly available on the USDA website, and the URL for the directory is listed in the slide. At the top of the web page, select NPIP participants by state territory, and select the state to see who is enrolled in the program and what classifications they have. So if no one is enrolled in Alaska, then why should we care about the NPIP program? The U.S. poultry industry is one of the largest in the world and an important sector of our agriculture economy. Keeping birds safe from infectious disease is a top priority and responsibility for all owners, growers, workers, and enthusiasts involved in raising poultry. Disease outbreaks can lead to devastation of our flocks and result in job and financial losses, quarantines, limiting trade, and affect prices on eggs and meat. An outbreak in a small backyard flock of just a few chickens can have enormous effects on the entire poultry industry. The NPIP program is more often utilized by larger producers, those with at least 1,000 chickens. However, as I said in the previous slide, an outbreak of disease in any poultry, even one bird, can have very serious consequences. There are many producers who have flocks less than 1,000 birds, where the NPIP program might not be as practical. For the smaller backyard producer or hobbyists, USDA offers the Defend the Flock education program. This program is based off the principles of biosecurity in the NPIP program and provides tools and resources you need to make sure that you are doing everything possible to keep your birds healthy and reduce the risk that an infectious disease could spread from your property to another flock on someone else's property. I've mentioned the term biosecurity several times so far in this presentation, but what does biosecurity mean? Biosecurity are the actions taken to reduce the introduction and spread of disease on a farm and focuses on prevention instead of treatment of disease. Good biosecurity can protect your flock from many viral, bacterial, and parasitic diseases, including avian influenza. Many outbreaks are associated with breaks in biosecurity. The goal of biosecurity is to prevent, control, and/or manage risks to the life and health of both humans and animals. By practicing good biosecurity, you can reduce the risk of infectious diseases being carried onto your property by people, animals, equipment, or vehicles, either accidentally or on purpose. You will also help protect your neighbors and their flocks by preventing the spread of diseases to their farms. Other benefits of biosecurity include a reduced number of pathogens, which will decrease the likelihood of disease, healthy animals that will have increased productivity and production, so healthy birds produce more eggs and put on more meat, decreased medication use, including antibiotics, enhanced reputation and flock value. People want to feel like the products and animals that they get from you are safe. Address animal welfare concerns by reducing pain, sickness, and death. I will tell you that I have responded to several disease outbreaks, including the virulent Newcastle disease outbreak in California that lasted from 2018 to 2019. My job was to work on the sick bird team, which means that I responded to any sick bird calls that came out. And I saw many sick birds down there. And I will tell you that these birds do not feel good, and there is a very high impact on their welfare when they become sick. You can make sure that biosecurity is practiced each and every day. Now that I have discussed what biosecurity is and the goals of biosecurity, I will now talk about the 6 biosecurity principles as outlined in Defend the Flock program. Keep your distance is the first biosecurity principle in the Defend the Flock program. You can help prevent transmission of disease organisms by minimizing traffic, both humans and animals. Humans and animals can act as fomites, which can bring disease onto your property. A fomite is an object or material which can carry infections such as clothing, cages, or feeders and waterers. You can also avoid visitors if they have been around other birds in the last 48 hours. This time period allows for the disease organisms to become inactive. Also minimize exposure to wildlife, such as squirrels, raccoons, rodents, etc., and wild bird droppings. We recommend that you construct a roof or utilize a netting to cover your runs. Covering your runs is an especially good idea in Alaska due to the amount of wildlife we have here. Hawks and other raptors think that chickens make pretty tasty dinners. Wild birds can harbor many diseases that can be passed to domestic poultry, so preventing mingling between your poultry and wild birds is very important. This is a map of the migratory routes of waterfowl, and as you can see, 3 out of 4 of these flyways go through Alaska. This means that we have waterfowl that come from all over the US and South America to Alaska. The reason we are concerned about this and recommend that wild birds not be allowed to mix with poultry is because wild waterfowl harbor low-path avian influenza and oftentimes do not appear sick, but can transmit this disease to poultry. This low-path avian influenza that poultry get from waterfowl can then mutate to the high-path avian influenza. This is very concerning because it can make your poultry very sick, but it can also be zoonotic, meaning that it can pass from the chickens to the humans in contact with them. There can be a lot of impacts of avian influenza, including illness and death in small flocks. Oftentimes, owners will report that almost their entire flock will die within 24 hours. Many of these birds will show up with congested and swollen wattles, and as I said, sudden death. Fears among small flock owners. So this is a zoonotic disease, meaning it can be passed from humans to animals. Or I should have said, from animals to humans. This is also concerning for neighboring flocks, as this disease is highly infectious and can pass easily between flocks. We also see community concerns about the safety of eggs and meat. High-path avian influenza can be found in meat and eggs. Large outbreaks can also result in the cancellation of fairs and shows, as we don't want these birds to be around each other and transmit the disease. There can also be significant economic impacts. In the 2014-2015 avian influenza outbreak, over 50 countries barred US poultry imports, with a loss of about $1.3 billion to the US poultry economy. 50 million chickens and turkeys were depopulated to stop the spread of the disease. And the US government spent approximately $879 million to control high-path avian influenza. As you can see, allowing poultry access to wild waterfowl can have severe impacts. The second biosecurity principle is to keep it clean. Wear clean clothes, including clean shoes, and we do recommend that you have dedicated footwear, as shoes can often act as a fomite and are a common way that disease can be spread between farms. Make sure you gather your eggs often, and make sure you clean your coop and remove dirty litter on a regular basis. Also remove any damp or moist litter or litter that is too dry and dusty. Any equipment, feeders, and waterers that you use should be cleaned and disinfected. And an inexpensive disinfectant is a 10% solution of water with bleach. You mix 1 part bleach with 9 parts water. Make sure you remove dirt and manure from the surface and then wash with a 10% solution of water and bleach, and make sure you rinse it thoroughly. Hand washing after handling birds, eggs, and other equipment that have come into contact with poultry is very important. Hand washing protects birds, plus protects humans from diseases transferred from birds to humans, such as salmonella. So just a little quiz here. There are more bacteria hanging out in the palms of your hand than A, school days in Missouri, which is 174, number of Facebook users, which is 30 million, raisins and Kellogg's Raisin Bran, which is a lot, and the number of people on Earth, 6.9 billion, or E, all of the above. So the answer to this is actually E, all of the above. In the palm of your hand, there can be over 7 billion bacteria. The quiz gives you an idea of how many bacteria are on your hands. So this is an important step and is worth mentioning again. Remember, both bird and human health is at stake, and an easy prevention measure can go a long way in making sure both you and your chickens stay healthy. So what is a proper hand washing procedure? Well, you must use soap, and you need to make sure that you wash well, making sure that you get the back of your hands, between your fingers, and under the nails. You should also sing the happy birthday song twice while washing to make sure that you have adequate contact time. Which is the CDC's hand washing guideline, and it has a little video on there on proper hand washing technique. The third biosecurity principle is don't haul disease home. The single biggest biosecurity risk to your poultry is by the addition of new animals to your flock. However, many people cannot run a closed flock as it is practical for small flocks. And you need to add in poultry to replace those that have died, or if you want to increase your flock size. When I refer to closed flocks, these are flocks that never add in animals from outside sources. So they will have breeder stock on site that they will add into their flock. Since you will most likely be adding to your flock at some point, you can minimize the risk of introduction of disease by buying chicks from reputable sources, such as hatcheries registered in the NPIP program, or by quarantining any new birds that are added to your flock before, and this is the key word here, before, they can interact with your established flock. Here are some tips on how to safely add in new birds to your flock. Don't ever mix young birds with old birds, as this can increase the risk of disease and cannibalism. Wait until the birds are fully grown and are the same size as the older birds. Their immunity is stronger and they can fend for themselves. Try not to add one bird into a group of 10 or 12 birds. Being the new hen on the block, they'll get picked on. Try to add in several birds at the same time to prevent the picking on of the new additions. Apparently healthy looking animals can still introduce disease, as they may be infected, but not yet showing signs, or they're in a carrier state of the infection. By quarantining any new birds for at least 30 days, any incubation period of the disease we are concerned about, such as avian influenza, will be over. Incubation period is the time from when the animal is infected with the disease and when the animal will start to become sick and show symptoms of the disease. Biosecurity principle number 4 is don't borrow disease from your neighbor. While frequently the least attractive aspect of a biosecurity plan, sanitation is often the key factor in minimizing spread and limiting the course of infectious disease. If you borrow equipment, make sure it's something that can be cleaned and disinfected, such as stainless steel. Materials such as wood cannot be disinfected and should not be used. Cleaning and disinfection are actually two separate steps, which we will discuss in the next slide. The Center for Food Security and Public Health, which is part of Iowa State University, has this very easy to follow cleaning and disinfection protocol that I have here on the slide. Let's start with the steps for cleaning. Cleaning is the removal of all visible debris such as manure, bedding, dirt, feed, and feathers. Once visible debris are removed, then wash with water and a detergent or soap. Rinse off the detergent and allow the equipment to dry. Make sure the cage or equipment is thoroughly rinsed, as some soaps can inactivate your disinfectants. Once cleaning is done, you can then disinfect your equipment. So the first step for disinfection is to apply the disinfectant. As mentioned previously, an inexpensive disinfectant that is effective against most poultry diseases is a 10% solution of water and bleach. Again, you mix 1 part bleach, 9 parts of water. Many disinfectants require contact time. This is very important that the contact time be achieved, otherwise it will not kill all the microorganisms. The contact time will be on the label of the disinfectant. After the contact period is achieved, you can rinse the equipment and allow it to dry. Biosecurity Principle 5 is to know the warning signs of infectious disease. If you have a large sudden die-off of birds, or many become sick suddenly, this could indicate a very serious issue. The sooner that a disease is recognized, the easier it is to contain the disease and prevent the spread of the disease through your flock or to your neighbors. The last biosecurity principle is to report sick birds. If you have 1 or 2 sick birds, you most likely have an issue other than disease going on, such as a husbandry issue, which means care for your animals. You can engage a veterinarian to help you determine what the issue is. However, if you see unusual signs of illness, a marked increase in the number of sick birds, or a marked increase in the number of dead birds, please call the sick bird hotline immediately. I have the number there on the slide for you. This hotline will get you in touch with a federal vet, such as myself, or the state veterinarian, such as Dr. Gerlach, who's pictured there. We would much rather that people err on the side of caution and give a false alarm than we miss an important disease outbreak. There is no charge to call the sick bird hotline. In addition, the state veterinary lab will also do necropsies on poultry that have died. So you can contact, if you have some dead birds, you can contact Dr. Gerlach. His number is there on the slide, as well as his email, and he can help you out with that. All right, so I'm going to just give you guys a couple information or some information and some resources out there that I have found to be very helpful in caring for birds. So this was kind of an interactive slide, but what's wrong with this picture? So what we're seeing here is a whole bunch of chicks all huddled up together under a light. And essentially what is wrong is that these little chicks are cold. So new chicks you need to keep them pretty warm. I have a temperature chart here, but these little chicks that are about a week old, they need to be 90 degrees and above at least. And as you can see, as they get a little bit older, the temperature can go down, but it's still in at least 70 degrees that these guys need to be at, depending on their age. So one question that I get asked is, when can they go outside? Well, they should at least have all of their adult feathers. So that is at 5 to 6 weeks of age. They still may need to have a heat lamp in the coop at night to regulate temperature. And here in Alaska, that is almost certain. I also wanted to bring up some cold-tolerant chickens. So some features that we look for chickens who are cold tolerant is that they will have, as pictured here, small comb, a small wattle, and then they'll have heavy feathering, including bearding and feathers on the legs to help them retain heat. The small comb and the small wattle help resist frostbite. Over here is a list of several cold tolerant breeds that there are. I usually like to throw this slide in as some poisonous foods for chickens, just for people's awareness. So tobacco, where we run into problems with that is with cigarette butts. So if you have anybody who smokes, sometimes they will put their cigarette butt out and throw it in the yard, or they can blow in. These butts can be very toxic to chickens. So if you have your chickens out in your yard free ranging around, you want to just inspect to make sure that there is no tobacco butts out there. Avocado skins and pits are very toxic to chickens. Also guacamole, so make sure that you don't feed your chickens any avocado. You should avoid citrus juice and skins. Please don't give them anything that contains high contents of salt, sugar, coffee, or liquor. I think I saw a post recently about somebody feeding their chicken a McDonald's French fry, which has a lot of salt in it, so please don't do that. Uncooked raw or dry beans contain hemagglutinin, which is poisonous to chickens. So don't feed them anything that is raw or a dried bean. Even one bean can cause harm to a chicken. So it's very toxic to them. Raw green potato skins. So when you guys look at your potatoes, sometimes you'll see these potatoes that have that green coloration to them. That's solanine. So make sure that you're not feeding that to your chickens. That can be toxic to them. Onions, they can be fed in a low quality or in a small amount, but they do give eggs an onion flavor, which if you guys are selling eggs or utilizing eggs for yourself, you may not appreciate. But large quantities of onions can actually affect the red blood cells and cause an anemia. Make sure that you don't feed any unshelled nuts like walnuts, black walnuts, hazelnuts, or pecans. And then be careful about giving leaves of rhubarb, potato, or tomato plants to your chickens. The tomato itself is fine to give to a chicken. That won't cause any problems, but the leaves itself will. All right, so some chicken resources that are out there. I really like the Chicken Whisperer. His name is Andy Schneider. He has a podcast. He has a Facebook page. He's the author of the Chicken Whisperer's Guide to Keeping Chickens and Chicken Fact or Chicken Poop. The Chicken Whisperer's Guide to Facts. He's got really a lot of great information. He's a backyard producer himself. He's not affiliated with USDA or any of us, but he has some really great information out there that addresses a lot of the questions that you guys often have. The For Dummies book series, which you can find on Amazon, that list of poisonous foods that I shared with you guys on the previous slide, I actually got from one of the Dummies books, but they're really simple, they're really easy to read. You can pick them up used, and I think they run like $5 to $10 used. So they're pretty inexpensive, but a really good source of information. So Purina Mills actually also have a starter guide to poultry. It's very informative. You can see the link there, and it's just a little handbook that kind of tells you how to get started with chickens if you've never had chickens before. I really like the Stony Ridge Farmer on YouTube channel. He discusses everything chicken. You can subscribe to the channel and get all kinds of really good information on raising chickens, how to construct coops, free-ranging chickens, and he does some tours on hatcheries. So if you guys have never seen a hatchery before, his hatchery tour is pretty neat to watch. There's also the Backyard Chicken Doctor who's on Facebook. He is a veterinarian and backyard chicken enthusiast who has a Facebook page. So it's the Backyard Chicken Doctor. He lives down in Washington, and he posts a lot of really good information on there about having backyard chickens. One disclaimer is that he can't diagnose. So if you guys put a post up about my bird looks like this, what is wrong with it? Legally, he can't diagnose those birds, but he does have a lot of great stuff on there. I think the last post that I saw was about birds getting into plastic sacks, and that was some really good information. There's also the Defend the Flock program, which I talked to you guys about already. So you can go to the USDA website if you want to know more. There's a lot of flyers and different information there about biosecurity and to how to make sure that your flocks stay healthy. There's also a Facebook and Twitter feed if you guys are interested with that, as well as the e-newsletter that you can sign up with. And we also have a YouTube channel too. And that is the end of the presentation. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Jody, for giving this class today. Again, we are recording it, so we'll be sending it out to everybody who registered for the class. There's a lot of great resources in this presentation, so it's always a great thing to look back through. Again, Jody, did you share your email information in the beginning slide of the presentation?
I did not, but my email is Jody, Jodie, _M, Jones, @USDA.gov. And if anyone has questions, they're welcome to send me an email.
Perfect. And then does that email look right in the chat that I just sent through? I'm not sure if you can see the chat.
Yeah, I can't see the chat as
okay. So I had jody.m.jones@usda.gov.
Yep. And
okay.
Then you guys also had Dr. Gerlach's information in this presentation as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much again. And we will post this as soon as we can get it uploaded.
All right. Well, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Have a good
Take
day.
care.